Welcome back, guys. We're back here with Midweek Meta. I got myself Maddie, and I got my lovely, very, very nice looking mustache man here, Chris. How about you say hi to the
Hey,
folks?
how's it going, guys?
Okay. Quick update, you guys. Dude, it's been crazy. This bands. I hope this isn't dated, but I'm okay with it. Like it's been crazy, and we'll talk about it. We got two fun decks here. Quick little spoiler. He's gonna talk about Urza. I'm gonna talk about Teferi. Both monocolor decks that we're both not like comfortable with, but
Ex-
they seemed interesting.
Exploring,
But
sure.
before we exploring, there we go. But before we get there, I was gonna give us a little meta update. It's not super big, but we're slowed down. Stacks, they're here. I'm actually really excited. But the one thing that worries me, and we kind of seen a little bit, is players that don't know how to play into stacks or play around stacks. It's like, okay, guys, this isn't mid-range meta hell anymore. This is stacksy. Like we talked in, if you check Turning Point's other episodes where we talked about stacks with a friend of Chris's here.
Rich, what's up? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, great stacks player. Does always light stacks in general. He knows the right stuff, man. He's a great politician. Knows how to talk to people properly and say, "Hey, I can get this, but you have to do that." So stacks is definitely one of those parts where if people don't talk, things get really muddy and everything comes to a standstill. So you can play stacks, but you
Right.
really have to talk to people. Otherwise, you're going to be
Mhm.
targeted, or you're not going to get the right piece.
Yeah, you gotta build that communication. That's a big thing. And that's kind of flips into the question I was gonna ask you here on the little update. How do you think some of these newer players that like they've come from the casual, we kind of brought some newer players into the fold of playing kind of CDH. How do you think they're gonna handle like they see stacks as a scary thing, like you just said, that you don't talk to the party, but like me and you try to talk to the not party, the players.
Sure.
And it's like, yo, no, 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 don't remove that. That's not gonna. That's gonna open over here. It's like I don't know how to. This is gonna be a weird politic game, and how do you think it's gonna happen? In my opinion, it's gonna be weird. So I don't want to hear what your thing is gonna be like.
I think we're just a little bit stacks heavy right now as we try to explore the meta realistically because we're unsure. We're not trying to lose in general. So I think we're just overstaxing right now. That's my personal opinion. Um,
Okay.
I know that we had a new player, really nice guy. Love that he's coming into it. Like, hey, bring your deck. Let's make it better. Look through a little bit of his pieces for the deck. Like, hey, let's do this. Hey, let's do that. Super fun. Honestly, great dude. And he played some interesting stuff that I'm kind of excited about to see where it goes in general. A chain of Stopolies. I'm like, I don't know how this card works, and the One Ring just, I don't even know. Um, it was,
Which speaking,
yeah.
One Ring. How do you feel about that? That card's a little weird. It's I just feel like it's slowed down. Like I don't know, not being able to drop it as fast
I mean,
doesn't make it feel as good.
a turn two One Ring is just as good as a turn one ring, in my opinion. Honestly, realistically, I mean, it's very easy to get it out there. I mean, turn one Soul Ring, turn two another land. Cool. I mean, it's very doable. There's a lot of other different artifacts and things like that. Simian Spirit Guide in red is super good. Elvish Spirit Guide in green is pretty good. I'm running both of those in my deck right now. Um, I think it's reasonable realistically. But yeah, Stacks is interesting. The meta's slowed down a little bit. I think it just can take some time to adapt. And we have all of our fast mana gone, so it's like cool. Magda plays great into Stacks realistically, unless
Yeah.
it's a lot of spot removal, which I saw a lot of that. Um, it's just too new to really say one way or the other. But I think our meta will adjust eventually a little bit more towards a little bit more mid range.
So it's funny you say the targeted. That's one of the things I hate about playing like my Esper deck. It's very controlly. It's like when I bowmaster somebody and I have to kill their thing, it's like, oh man, well you know it's the right answer, but you're like you look at them, they look at you, you're like, I'm sorry.
Y- yes, I mean it really comes down to talking realistically. Like, hey, I have one dwarf on the battlefield. I get that I'm scary, but this guy has 8 rocks, 10 lands, and
Mhm.
5 creatures. Like, why are we pinging me when there's an
Whoa,
Esper
whoa,
on the?
whoa, whoa. Oh, that was me. I had all those things.
I think them hitting me when they did was appropriate for sure. No big
Yeah.
deal on that. But it really comes down to, yeah, sometimes you do have to target some people because they are scary. But talking. Talking is going to
Oh
be,
yeah.
if I don't have much interaction in my hand, it's like, listen, I can get this to stop this other person. That's really sometimes the only way that you can deal with stacks in general. Like, hey, don't blow up the stack because I'm stopping this other person. Do you understand? And sometimes we get short sighted and we're not looking.
That game was gross.
Yeah, it was.
One thing we're gonna fall into. Do you think the time limits are gonna be an issue?
So, like we talked about in a previous episode, do you think Thassa's Oracle should be banned? And there needs to be an A plus B combo, realistically. And Blue Black is best in casual and best in CEDH. So I think people definitely lean heavier even into Blue Black to be more straightforward. Time is always going to be difficult. I mean, all that you can really do is if we becomes more stacksy and people are taking more time to decide certain things that should be pretty quick, like, hey, I'm going to exile this certain thing out of your graveyard. If they're taking 2 minutes, you should be calling judge. You should be. You
Yeah.
should be.
Okay.
I think that's about the only real way to deal with it. If nothing else, to get inside their head.
That makes sense. So you're perfect there. It all if wrap it all back around here. It all falls back to communication. If you can use your words, and this is we're not saying belittle gaslight people, but sometimes you do have to bluff. Like in that game we were talking about before, I made it sound like I had interaction. My only interaction was silence. He can counter your Tavalts and we're gonna will, and he can Bowmaster, but all I can silence. But I made it sound like my interaction was gonna stop it.
And I vouched for you that it was interactive. Like,
And
dude,
yeah.
we don't need to do this right now. You're gonna waste all your spells. You're gonna
Yeah.
waste all your spells. So like,
And
he
it's
was
like-
gonna stop it. We wheeled. I'm like, thank God. And sometimes
Yeah,
all that
I
that's all
was
that
like-
takes. Like, hey, oh man, you have 3 cards, and people sometimes won't go for it. And like, listen, he has interaction. Unless you have this, you're wasting your stuff.
Some players will they think that's the right action, and it's in some it might be in some ideas in some games that would have been the right action, but at the same time you can't fill up 3 other people's hands like that when all 3 people know how to pivot very well. So it's like I can't do that. Like even like I would hate to say if I was in a game with you, me, Nate, and probably Bruce, like that would scare me to give you guys all 5 new cards. It could be you could get 5 lands, Bruce could get 5 artifacts, and Nate could get 5 creatures.
Yeah.
And you guys could do nothing with them. But it's still that's 5 new cards, 5 new information, and I think that's a scary thing sometimes. But
Yeah.
it kind of comes back to we've talked a couple times as we kind of wrap up our update, our meta update. New decks on rotation. You got any kind of new spice you're brewing? You got Magda.
Got Magda.
Okay, what else you got playing lately?
I built Tyem, and then I immediately said, no, I'm good. I don't want to do that. I already got. Sometimes you want to have an arsenal whenever you're picking a couple different decks. Our group likes to have 2 to 3 decks. With us being able to proxy in CDH, super easy. You could literally proxy an entire deck if you wanted to, and then test it out and figure out how it goes in general. So I want to have one that doesn't rely on the commander, and I don't really know which one. It's probably going to be Blue Farm, but right now I'm kind of like anything but the top 3 decks, realistically. Cool. Magda, Malcolm, X, and then I don't know. Like, Kinnan feels really good, but I don't want to play Kinnan if everyone's playing Kinnan. You know, I want to be able to attack. I want to be able to.
I want to pin you. I want to pin you real quick on that one, the Kinnan one, dude. Kinnan. Ugh. After this, shout out. If you're ever interested, we do spell table games, which we're gonna jump into after this. We finish this recording and the episode. Well, how many Kinnans are we gonna run into, or how many Kinnans are we gonna see in the next couple weeks? Because shout out to Salt City, we have a tournament with them in 2 weeks, so it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Well, when this comes out, I think
it'll be that week.
Be that weekend. Yeah. So, if you're in Utah, come out, come see us. We're doing a tournament. Come hang out with us. CDH proxy friendly. I think the Kinnan's gonna be. It was already a strong deck. It was strong, and then the bird came in like, and it just took it out. And our Kinnan's like crawled through the ashes like a phoenix. Oh, hey guys, hey. And then we're like, okay. And then it's like, oh, you lost your mana crypt and jeweled lotus. I don't need those. And you're like, wait, can stop, Kinnan, get back here. Okay, so you got Kinnan So you got those three decks slash Kinning partially because I understand I wouldn't play it too. So like it's as weird as it is, I like to play more of our fringe decks in our meta. But so what other decks like is there one that's kind of like on the back burner that you're looking at maybe?
It's probably gonna be Blue Farm realistically. Some people have been saying Blue Farm is being dethroned a little bit, but it's okay. You don't play Crom. You just probably have to adapt a little bit differently. A couple more 2/2 flyers in general, maybe so that you can get in. You go back to some other things that like help you start off early because right now you just need some 2 drops. I mean, you have a bunch of flash creatures that fly or come out of nowhere, and they haven't been playing many creatures recently. So now that you don't have Crom, people can play Planeswalkers a little bit more now these days, a little bit, because there's no 4/4 flyer coming in down turn 2, turn 3 kind of thing. He's coming down turn 4, turn 5, and that's fine. I really don't want to tap out for Crom, but you definitely need maybe some more flyers or some kind of evasion in general. Making treasures, I think, is just insanely good. Professional Facebreaker right now feels really, really good. So
Okay.
I would definitely see. I don't know. There's got to be a way. I think they just needs to adapt. But it losing Dockside, okay, Crypt, yeah, that kind of hurts a little bit. But outside of that, I think it'll come back. It doesn't have any dorks. It already played most of the artifacts. Um, Man, it right now like Mox Amber feels like Mox Amber and Opal feel like your only things that you really slot in instead to try to speed back up a little bit. Amber doesn't feel great because I was looking at all the 1 mana legendary creatures. They kind of suck. They kind of suck. And then how many legendary 2 drops are you really playing either?
Yeah,
Not
no.
many. Most
But
of them are on 3. Most of them are on 3. And at that point in time, Mox Amber doesn't really speed you up that much. So I'm looking into certain things. I think for sure maybe Blue Farm, we're trying to be a little bit more slow, could definitely play um, Mox Tantalite potentially, and then if you're trying to play Crom at any given time and being able to explode with mana on turn 4, turn 5, I think Lotus Bloom is acceptable to play if you want to be able to get a mass amount of mana. I mean, that's kind of what Dockside did in general, right? Dockside allowed you to have a bunch of mana all at once. 3 mana for nothing seems reasonable.
yeah,
People, I think Blue Farm can still play Drannith Magistrate just fine. You know what I mean? So I don't see it, I don't see it as um it's just about figuring out what fits in that spot that speeds you back up. And I think it's Springleaf Drum potentially, Lotus Bloom, and Mox Tantalite is kind of things I'm running around with right now in general because
okay, nice.
you have to run more 0 drops in order to get some velocity. And right now, that's what we kind of lack. And if someone could get more velocity than other people, one reason why Kinnan is so good is cool. I play a dork. I play I play my commander turn 2, and now I have 2 mana to make a talisman, to tap that to make another talisman, to tap that to make another talisman, and then you untap turn 3, and you're just like, cool, I'm going off. So I
And we're all like, I play my second talisman.
pretty much. So it's just cheating on mana right now, and it's a win con in the command zone. I think Kidden definitely is a kill on sight. It's the Nadu. Right now, I don't think it's as oppressive. I think it's definitely doable. I think it's the same old Bolt the Bird. You kill Kennen, and the deck doesn't hum it as much as much. You kill Kennen, and the rest of the deck just kind of is on par with everyone else.
To give everybody a quick my update on mine, I got Marnius. It's my Esper control deck.
Yep.
I just enjoy that deck. It's making tokens. It has a bunch of my favorite like Esper cards. Shout out to Smothering Tide. I love that card. But I have Rocco, which I'm working on. That deck, I got it as a shout out back to episode 6/7. No, episode 7. Art mid range. I'm cooking. Rocco, I'm cooking with right now.
Sure.
It's been there's been some grease fires. There's been some chemicals put out, but we're working.
Sure.
Then my two surprise ones for you. I got TNT. I'm working on that one again.
Sure.
I was going off the Nadu package originally,
Everyone
but
was.
now that Nadu's gone, I'm not gonna. They can't touch. It was the whole like using it for like breakfast Hulk lines.
Yeah, so with that, like, what win condition are you really trying to go with? I've seen a couple different options in general. There's that one guy that comes down. He's like a 4 or 5 drop, and he puts everything underneath it, and then you sacrifice him, and then everything comes back, and you do that whole loop over and over again. I forget which one that.
Abdel Adrian.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know there's a
You have
loop.
like yeah, it's a necromancy because it bounces. It's like the same world gorger thing
Sure,
because it sees
sure.
itself and loses itself. So you make a bunch of infinite 1/1s, and then you can have like any kind of like sack outlet. You can kill people. I'm playing with it. I don't right now. I've got the basis of a good kind of mid range deck with it,
Mhm.
but I don't know. It's just I got to play with it more. It's been kind of a hectic week myself. I've been busy, so I've had a lot of time to play with it. As it sits right now, I'll have my Esper control, the creature combo with Rocco, TNT kind of doing that mid range. Maybe see with Staxy. Maybe I'll go see what's going on there, and then I'll have Turbo with this Jeskai deck. Which, if you catch out last episode, we talk about this, but it'll be really exciting to see what's gonna happen because this whole we had a shakeup in the meta already. People were trying different things, but with the ban coming out, things are already getting shaked up again.
Yeah.
But as we talk about the ban a little bit, let's talk about 2 decks we're not familiar with here, you guys. So if we mess something up here, please comment. Let us know if we mess like a lineup or we said something wrong. But we're gonna give you guys quick little rundowns on 2 different style decks. Well, they're similar styles, but Chris here is going to talk about Urza, Lord High Artificer, and myself. I'm going to talk about Teferi, Temporal Archmage. But Chris here, I've been talking a lot, so I'm going to pass it over to you. Let's give a quick rundown.
Similar to Magda in general, why would you run red? Why would you run blue? Back to basics is a great example. And then obviously Harbinger of the Tide that was printed off not too long ago. These things are going to punish anything that's not a basic land. So in Urza, you actually run more basic lands than in Magda. So it's actually pretty good. You don't need as much utility necessarily because now you have blue. You have counter spells. You have ways to interact. Whereas before, you're like, cool, the only way I interact or I get ahead is by using my lands to try and get me somewhere. Urza definitely has a huge mana ability opposed to go and get one thing and lock out the field. So no matter what, it's kind of resilient where it has, once it kind of gets Urza, if you can protect it, it's going to take over the game just because it makes so much mana in general. Because of the bans, let's see, Forensic Gadgeteer, whenever you cast an artifact spell, investigate. And then basically you can spend 1 mana to activate your artifacts, or one less. So if you've got a clue, right, for investigation, you can then tap a different clue to sack that clue, right? So if you can basically loop a bunch of 0 drops over and over again, which this one plays an absolute crap ton of, you're able to essentially draw the majority of your deck if you're able to bounce both of them and then use one to tap it with Urza to crack the other one. So essentially you could draw your entire deck. In another strategy for Urza, you can polymorph just for Hullbreaker Horde to basically bounce all your 0 drops to make infinite mana, which is a little bit disgusting. So you have the Hullbreaker here as well, which is pretty nice. But now you have like the Walking Ballista, but then there's also one from Modern Horizons 3, which is whenever you cast a colorless spell, you make a 0/1 Eldrazi that you can sacrifice to make a colorless. And whenever another colorless creature enters the battlefield under your control, it deals 1 damage to each opponent. So you just bounce a bunch of 0 drops, artifacts, and when it comes in, it makes an Eldrazi, which then triggers that thing and deals 1 damage to everyone. So you don't even need a bunch of artifact guys. So I mean, if you can go infinite and just bounce a bunch of 0 drops back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth a million times, you'll kill everyone. So you really need Hullbreaker Horde to kind of go infinite. So that's kind of the thing with like mono blue in general. The win lines seem like there's only a couple, and they're not that spectacular. I mean, Walking Ballista is always like the go-to for the mono colors. Like, oh, just put Walking Ballista and go infinite mana. It's like draw your entire deck, find a line, or you have really only 2 win conditions, and they're both creatures. And if they get milled or countered, like Time Twister, that way, if one of those things do get milled, you're able to get it back. Going over blue and looking at that in casual, they do a lot of cantrips. Your preordains, your ponders, your brainstorms. In this deck, it has ponder and preordain, both the sorcery speed. I mean, you can go get almost any artifact that you really want to with mono blue, which is kind of like really nice. Like you don't need Urza or you don't need Magda to go get that because there's a lot of transmute artifact or Fabricate or a couple different ones in general. So your spells in blue are the way that you go and get it. Urza does kind of help a little bit sometimes, but it's more random in general. A lot of counter spells, in mono blue. So that's really where it is. Like you can sit back and just chill. I would run Type Spout Tyrant if if it's that important that you need one or two of these. I'd run both of them just like in Kinnan because you need one of these and then you either make infinite mana and Walking Ballista, or you make infinite mana and then you bounce a bunch of zero drops over and over and over again to kill everyone. Um, so, but realistically, I mean, the deck I'm looking at in general is the one that's run by Ian. They're running Trinisphere, which is going to be incredibly good. Winter Moon, I don't know. Static Orb, super good in general. Players can only untap 2 permanents during their main phase, which is interesting. And then just a bunch of zero drops. Counterbalance, I think, is incredibly good right now. I think it's insane. In a slower deck like this, cool. You just have all of the counter spells. There's probably and that's why I like Brainstorm and stuff like that. I'm like, why are they not playing Brainstorm? They're playing Ponder and Preordain, and they should be playing Opt and some other stuff. I don't know. It just and then let's see, not too many, but you can run. They're running 18 islands, which is pretty good. And then I think obviously this deck wasn't made for current meta, but I mean Ancient Tomb is good. But there's 2 other lands that you can use to make 2 mana really early, and I think getting out Urza turn 2 would be pretty dang good. City of Traders, right? So whenever you play another land, it sacks. Okay, sucks. You can turn it into an island later on. Nothing bad there. And then there's the Crystal Veins of something, right? Let's see. You can add 1 mana regular, or you can sacrifice and add 2. So it's like it's a selective explosive mana crypt.
Okay.
If you're only running 1 color and you're running 18 basic lands, it seems like it's very doable to do that realistically, especially.
No, absolutely.
So I think adding all 3 of those, the Crystal Veins, the City of Traders, cool. I can play all my 2 drops in this deck in particular. Getting out your Urza super early, getting out your Trinisphere super early, getting out your Static Orb super early. I mean, you have so many artifacts in general, and you might be able to play more. Most of them are just mana rocks.
That is the one thing both of these decks suffer from. Yeah, the colorless mana. What do we sink it into now? Sometimes it's like, oh, okay. If which I'll get to when I talk about the fairy here. Yeah, you can have your clues that you're making, draw your cards, but like what besides Walking Ballista, there's very little sinks that you have.
Before we couldn't do this, you know what I mean? We couldn't play artifacts and enchantments, and there might be something out there that there's an enchantment in blue that we actually need to be playing in these decks. Whereas before we were afraid, we're afraid of feeding Dockside. Now we're not.
I think that's what we're going to see is very much what's going to come out of these different decks because people were so scared of feeding or being the reason player 1 and 2 are okay. Yeah, they played a couple rocks, maybe an enchantment, but you played your enchantment deck as player 3. Well, player 4 just made 12 mana turn 1.
Yep.
So it's like, okay, that I get that. That's why I'm glad Dockside's gone. I 100% will say that. So I'm going to see what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
But kind of where we can kind of talk about this, like, what are these decks doing? I'm going to kind of give a quick rundown at the fairy, if that's cool.
Yeah, let's hear it. Yeah, absolutely.
So this deck, it's something else. Like I've been going through these primers, just reading about it. Which Teferi Temporal Archmage. Let me give you a rundown of what the commander actually says. It's 4 and 2 blue, so 6 cost total. +1. Look at the top 2 cards of your library. Put 1 into your hand and the other bottom of your library. -1. Untap up to 4 target permanents, and then -10. I get an emblem. I can activate loyalty abilities at instant speed.
Sure.
Okay, so looking at that right there, you're like, okay, that doesn't seem super broken or anything. But you're like, okay, wait, the -1, and then you go down into the Chain Veil Alliance, which this is why this is called Teferi Chain Veil.
Yeah.
Once you have Chain Veil out with this and you have a way to produce 5 mana, you down tick Teferi down to 1 using Chainville as your part of your untapping, and then you can kill it, get Teferi back out. It has all the reactivations of Chainville on top of this new Teferi. You then have a bunch of reactivations, draw your whole deck, put it in your hand. Okay, that's the same thing with you. Okay, my deck's in hand. What do I do? Back in the old day, oh, I just play my Mana Crypt on my Displacer Kitten and I go loop. Well, we can't really do that anymore with Mana Crypt being gone. And going through this primer and kind of just looking at these different deck lists, the way they've covered this, and I don't know if this deck has before, but this deck has 26 artifacts.
Hmm.
How could you run that in pre-Dockside banned? You couldn't.
They kind of did. There was 2 that made top 16.
Well, yeah, they did. There was these very, very, I'm gonna say this right now, very competent pilots on this deck. But I hate to say this, we throw this deck at somebody kind of in our play group, and Dockside was still around, they'd just be constantly king making whoever was playing Dockside, whoever got it first. Whoever was going Dockside after this player would begin the game. But besides the point, the deck is really cool. I kind of made a little thing. It's rock plus counter plus will in parentheses equals win. Because you're like you said, we have Time Twister in both these decks. We can recycle our decks and go very fast and over again. But how do we win? And reading through a couple of these different primers, one thing besides the didn't put into Walking Ballista do that way, that if you can get colored mana, Green Sun, or not Green Sun, Blue Sun Zenith, and then there's another one. I'll see where to go. It's not a whale, but it's a loop. Is extra turns. You run Nexus of Fate with Urza and a way to blink it. You can get infinite constructs, infinite turns. You just swing in with your 12-12s, 15-15s. They just get bigger and bigger. But I like the Blue Sun Zenith because everyone wants to draw cards. Cool. Well, you just drew your deck, dog. Pass.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
The Japanese one is beautiful, and it's only it's only a couple bucks. I'm putting it in. It's like $5. I'm putting that in my cart. That's another way that it's instant speed as well. So you technically could kill someone with Thoracle on the stack with that. Yeah. In blue, all you need is 4 mana, and then they draw and they die. So I think that's really good as a win condition as well as a reactive. Hey, you have counter spells, I have counter spells. Cool. I'm gonna draw 8 cards and see if I get anything. But also it's a win con. Cool. You will draw your entire deck, and I'm gonna draw through all mine, make infinite mana. Now you're gonna draw your entire deck. Now you're gonna draw your entire deck. Cool. Right. Especially since they can't react, they draw their entire deck and they lose due to state-based actions. I'm probably going to add that to the Urza list. I think we just do mono blue, dude.
You know how many people would just stop playing with us? I think we would lose our play group if we play this. But one thing I'll say with both these decks, and you'll catch this in hopefully a couple weeks when we talk about this again, a quick little recap. I think if we both build these decks, you have a little bit more experience because you have your Magda deck, but I think both these decks will give us different play patterns that will teach us better play styles, if that makes sense. I'm not saying that it's going to tell us how to be better players, but if we don't have all the advantages that we're used to having in, like, hey, your Magda deck, your Tana Malcolm deck, it's your decks you're used to, or me with my TNT deck. I'm very used to playing with Abzan with blue. I play Wet Abzan. I saw that on Reddit somewhere. It was like, oh my, I guess that's true. I play Wet Abzan.
Sure.
But I think if we both get these decks put together, or I hate to say it, even this Jeskai deck for me, because that's a little out of my wheelhouse, because that's very much a breach deck. It's the loopy deck, and I have loop combo decks, but Chris can attest for this. I'm not a very big sorcery assassin man instance. I'm a creature guy. I do a lot of creature-based combos. And I think if I do build this deck, which I told Chris this, like, looking through this list, it looks super fun, but like at the same time, maybe we'll clip this for our shorts or something. I don't like telling people no. I will tell you no. I will. I have to tell you no when we're playing a game because I want to win, but I don't like to, and because humans are humans here, they hold on to that. They say, "Oh man, it's a game. I get it," but it's always there. It's a little bit there, and it's human nature, and that's part of the game. But I don't I don't ever want someone to feel bad because I don't know. I put this deck together. I'm gonna say it right now. Maybe knock on some wood here. I put this deck together and I fall in love with it. I don't play anything else. This is all I play for the next 3-6 months. How many people are not gonna want to play with me? Like, I hate to say it, it's gonna be, oh God, Matt's playing Teferi again, or if it flips to you and maybe Urza, something just clicks for you while you're playing it, and you're like, oh my God, I love this counterspell stuff. I love saying no to everybody. Because I hate to say it, Chris, and maybe you can ask Nate this on your next episode with Turning Point, but we are the kind of the two angry people. We get hated, we not hated out, but we do get a little salty with people. And my biggest thing is I want to see people make the correct plays, the correct choices, and have fun.
Yeah.
Is I get, but don't be spiteful. I will 100%. That will always be my big thing. Have fun, be smart, but don't be spiteful.
Sure.
And I think both of these decks will teach us things, but I think our play group will learn from it too. So
yeah, you're good.
Maybe that's what we'll do. Is maybe us three will sit down and we'll build these 3 decks. Like maybe Nate will have his weird deck that's like kind of opposite whatever he has. We'll have to think. If you guys have any ideas what Nate should play with our weird, me and Chris are playing Urza and Teferi.
Arkham is another artifact one that comes around. Urza's
yes, Arkham.
Urza's Battle Thopter is another interesting one where you play everything at instant speed. So you play your commander. In that, I think it's almost all artifacts, so you can play Mishra's Workshop in that as well, and like cast everything for 3. Everything. Something to look into. The problem is any no rod effects is very easily hated out in a local meta. Very easily hated out. Very easily hated out. So that's the only problem. You can play all these spells. I don't even know how it wins.
I'm excited to see that, and I don't know. I love talking about these decks because I wouldn't ever think about building Teferi. That is not something mono blue. Ugh, no, thank you.
But it's something to work on and to say, hey, we're working on these fringe decks that we think are kind of interesting right now. No one else that we know is going to play them, so we're going to check them out. We might work on them for 2-3 weeks and say, you know what, we're good. I mean, I like to compare against the 2 different blue decks, and I think we have a lot of similarities. Yours has a commander, and you're more heavy on just playing every rock that produces anything. And I might consider adding a couple of those here and there, or I mean, it's difficult. You're playing big mana Urza, and I'm playing little mana Urza. Is realistically what it kind of comes down to. Like it
is, yeah.
I mean, Karn the Great Creator seems like a really, really good card. I think running more wheels could be really interesting as well. I think running not just Time Twister, but also Windfall. Because if you're playing all these rocks, who else is going to be able to play out a bunch of stuff, wheel, and then play a bunch of stuff? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Oh, another one too is Stroke of Genius. It's another one. It's 1 blue, 2 and X. Target player draws X cards. So if you have infinite mana, you can make a blue. You can make your opponent's draw. It's like a blue Sun Zenith. We were talking about it earlier. There was another one. I could not think of it. Yeah, it's Stroke of Genius.
Would you say that's better? This one, Blue Sun, you shuffle back into your library.
Yes, though. Yeah. Okay. Blue Sun comes back in, so it saves you a little bit, so you don't have to run like the Time Twister, Time Spiral. What is it? The Time Twister, Time Spiral, Narset Revival, where you recycle your deck again. Yeah. Kind of like the Endurance and Green. But that it's gonna be, and I kind of want to. This is where I think a good point for us to stop here before we do speculate into it.
Yeah.
Is I think we both get these decks either together, we get a good couple test games in, and then we come talk about it again. Not like highly like maybe not on the episode, but we kind of compare, be like, well, what do you think? How did you do? It is going to be different, and maybe this is where these are 2 spell table decks. Maybe this is our kind of test decks. It'd be kind of cool, and I think that's what's going to be kind of cool to see. And I think that's what I'm excited to bring to our group is let's mix up this meta. Let's add some weird fringe decks. Like, wait, you're playing what? Yeah, I'm playing this. Don't worry. This looks fun. I'm excited to try it, and I'm excited to see how people react to it. That too. If it gets poo-pooed so bad then yeah, I won't play it because it ruins my experience. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's one downside. Like I said, maybe this is our online deck, so these two. But um, Chris, I appreciate you doing the digging you do in these decks. You make me look really bad, but I appreciate
No,
it.
you gave me so much insight on like, okay, cool. What if I get infinite mana? What do I do now? I have
Mhm.
one line outside of putting them all into Urza. Now I have an additional line that acts differently as well. The worst feeling in general is when you make infinite tokens of something and then you have to pass turn.
Mhm.
That's the worst feeling. It's like I need to be able to kill everyone, and
Oh yeah.
on this turn,
It's that balance that we got to find. That's going to be fun to figure out. Is to figure, am I going to go more on that flashy side, or do I want to be no? Stop it.
Mhm.
No. But Chris, again, I appreciate you being here. I appreciate you coming out, man, every week, and you give us such an insight on some of these cards that like I don't think about. Like you scan a little bit faster through these newer cards.
sure.
I'm a little better with these like older like kind of loops. Okay, how did this deck used to work in 2016? Okay, all right, what card? Okay, I can do like add the old combo of A plus B, but add the new spice of this year. You find that card that you're talking about that when a colorless enters, it does 1 damage. That is literally an aristocrat in any deck, but in blue. Have you seen that before?
It,
I haven't seen
it's
that.
colorless. It can go in.
Like
It can go in any deck.
that's but that's what I mean. Like, but we don't see an aristocrat in blue. Like, that's
Yeah.
gonna be funny to watch. People like, wait, what does it do? But with that, Chris, we're gonna hop out of here. We got our friends over here jumping and playing into a game. As always, remember, be confident, but don't be condescending. And we'll catch you next week. I'm Maddie. You'll find us on X, Instagram, Facebook. You'll see us hopefully on Reddit. We'll make some comments here. Again, I'm Dreads or Maddie, and my lovely co-host here, Chris. Give him a shout out.
So these guys. See you next week.